In Ticket to Ride, players play as rail barons and baronesses building railways across 1900s America. The object of the game is to have the most points by the end of the game. Players can score points in 3 different ways. During the game, players can build railways between cities on the board along these lines. Whenever a player does this, based on the length of that railway, they will immediately score points and mark their points using one of these score trackers along the edge of the board. At the end of the game, players will all reveal the ticket cards that they have in their hand. Each ticket card will name 2 different cities on the board and will have a number on it. If that player has managed to connect those 2 cities together using their railways by the end of the game, they will score that many points. However, if they have failed to do that by the end of the game, they will lose that many points instead. Finally, the player who has the longest continuous track on the board will also gain an additional 10 points at the end of the game. Ticket to Ride is played in turns. On a player's turn, that player will do one thing, and they have 3 options as to what that thing can be. Option number 1 is to build a railway. That player will choose a railway that has not already been built somewhere on the board. So, for example, I might want to build a railway between El Paso and Houston. In order to build that railway, that player must discard train cards from their hand. The number that they discard must match the number of spaces that railway covers. So, for example, this railway is 6 segments long. To build it, I must discard 6 of these cards from my hand. In addition, each of the cards that I discard must be the same color. A set of cards, if you will. I discard those cards and then place my train cards on each of the segments along that line to indicate that that railway belongs to me. Once a player has built a railway, no other player can build along that line for the rest of the game. Certain rail lines will have 2 lines going between those cities. This means that 2 different players may build railways along that route. Some of these lines are gray, and some of them have a color. If you are building along one of the gray lines on the board, you can discard any set of cards that you like to build there. However, if you are building somewhere that has a color on it, you must discard a set of cards that matches that specific color. So in my example, from El Paso to Houston, these spaces are green. The set of cards I discard must be 6 green cards. If I don't have 6 green cards, I have to build somewhere else or do something else for my turn. In this deck of cards are train cards of many different colors, as well as these multicolored cards referred to as locomotives. These are wild cards in Ticket to Ride. When you are discarding a set of cards, you may discard a locomotive and use it as a card of any color. After you build a railway, consult the chart on the board to find out how many points that you immediately score and track along the side of the board. That's your first option. The second option of a thing you can do on your turn is to draw train cards in order to build a railway later. During the game, there will be 5 face-up train cards along the side of the board, as well as a face-down deck of train cards. If you decide to draw train cards for your turn, you may take 2 cards in any combination of these face-up cards or face-down cards from the top of the deck. As soon as you draw a face-up card, immediately replace it with another card from the top of the deck. You could draw that as your second card for the turn if you wish. The exception are locomotives. If you choose to draw a face-up locomotive, that is the only card you may draw for your turn. If you randomly draw a locomotive off the top of the deck, that's okay. You don't have to tell anyone, and you can still take 2 cards for that turn. You can have any number of cards in your hand in Ticket to Ride. The third option of a thing you can do on your turn is to draw ticket cards. At the beginning of the game, for the setup, each player will begin with 2 or 3 ticket cards in their hand, which they must keep for the remainder of the game. If you are not satisfied with your ticket cards and you want to draw more, you may take 3 off the top of the deck, look at them, and decide which ones you want to keep. You must keep at least one of them, but you could keep 2 or even all 3 if you like. Discard the others off to the side of the board. So, that's how most of the game will go, with players either playing railways, drawing train cards so that they can play railways, or drawing ticket cards in order to try to score more points at the end of the game. The game will continue until a player has 2 or fewer trains left in their supply after building a railway. Each player will gain 1 more turn, with the player who caused the end of the game taking the final turn of the game. At that point, players will reveal their ticket cards, add or subtract the numbers on those cards from their score, and players will determine which player had the longest continuous track, and that player will add 10 points to their score. At that point, the player with the highest score will win the game.